Eisenhower had to contend with at the political level was nothing compared to the outright hostility between several military commanders. In particular, there was open rivalry between two of Eisenhower's most famous subordinates. The British Field Marshal Montgomery was a single-minded and determined commander and had led all Allied ground forces during the Battle for Normandy. As a result, he considered himself to be Eisenhower's number two, but by early September, the American General Bradley was equal in rank. However, Bradley had few concerns other than to defeat Germany. And it was his brilliant spearhead commander, General George Patton, who became Montgomery's main challenger for glory. The contest between Patton and Montgomery to become the greatest Allied general would shake the Western Alliance to the very core and test to the limit even the diplomatic talents of General Eisenhower. In 1939, Gert von Rundstedt had been brought out of retirement to command Army Group A for the invasion of Poland. Rundstedt fought a brilliant campaign, and in 1940 his forces helped conquer the French in just 6 weeks. Over the next 4 years, Rundstedt went on to fight successfully on the Eastern Front and in Italy, and never once lost a battle. In January 1944, Rundstedt was given command of the Wehrmacht in the West, with orders to deny the Allies a foothold on French territory. But by the end of June 1944, in the face of total Allied air superiority, it was clear that Rundstedt had failed. Hitler had continuously interfered and had not even allowed him to commit his reserves to battle without permission. Hitler accused von Rundstedt of being a defeatist and dismissed him at the end of the month. Rundstedt had resigned himself to the third retirement of his career when, 2 months later, he was suddenly recalled. In July 1944, a bomb had been planted by army officers in Hitler's headquarters. Von Rundstedt's successor had been implicated and committed suicide. Hitler now had a deep mistrust of all Wehrmacht commanders and knew that although Rundstedt was a defeatist, he was at least loyal. On September the 5th, 1944, Rundstedt once more became Commander-in-Chief of all Wehrmacht forces in the West. Field Marshal von Rundstedt was now 69 years old, and he had been in the army for 52 years. Many Wehrmacht officers believed he was tired and worn out, bringing nothing but despondency to the vital task of defending the Reich's frontier. Rundstedt knew he faced an extremely dangerous situation and was sure he would be defeated in the end. Nevertheless, he immediately began regrouping his forces and reinforcing the weakest sectors of the Western Front. The Allied advance from June to September 1944 had been achieved more rapidly than the planners had anticipated. And now, the greatest single threat to continued Allied success was from overextended supply lines. Each infantry division required 20,000 tons daily, all of which still came from Normandy. Every effort was being made to ensure the Allied spearheads were given the fuel and ammunition they needed. The most important was Operation Pluto, the laying of a series of pipelines under the sea, which directly connected Britain and France. The coils, weighing more than a destroyer, could reel out 70 miles of pipe. Once connected to the mainland, pipelines were laid all the way across France to the Allied front. In preparation for the D-Day landings, the United States Air Force and Britain's Royal Air Force had dropped thousands of tons of high explosives on Wehrmacht road, rail and communication networks. Now that the ground forces were well established on French soil, the air forces could return the bombers to their original task of pulverizing German industry. Senior Air Force commanders believed that their efforts to destroy the Ruhr industry might yet produce the total collapse of Germany, without the need for an actual invasion. As the liberation of France had progressed, the number of targets for the air forces had steadily diminished. This meant that ever greater numbers of aircraft could be concentrated against an ever-decreasing number of targets. The P-38 Lightning was designed in 1936 as a high-altitude interceptor. Built by Lockheed, it was the company's very first military design. The distinctive twin-boomed Lightning first flew in 1939, when its top speed of 400 miles per hour was exceptional. The Lightning, armed with 4 machine guns in the nose, first saw combat in Europe in August 1941 and became the first American fighter to destroy a German aircraft. The P-38 was incredibly versatile and operated successfully in all Allied theaters. As well as being a high-altitude interceptor, the Lightning's high speed would prove valuable in photo reconnaissance, as a long-range escort, and as a ground attack aircraft, often armed with 14 rockets. The Lightning was known to the Germans as the forked-tailed devil and became the only American fighter to remain in production throughout the entire war. The M4 medium tank, known to the British as the Sherman, was the standard Allied tank of World War II. As a result of neglect in engine development before the war, the designers had used an aviation engine, which gave the Sherman its distinctive high profile. This made the Sherman an easier target than many of its contemporaries. However, the Sherman was simple, easy to maintain, and highly adaptable, and by late 1944, over 40,000 had been produced. One of the most successful adaptations of the M4 was the M10 tank destroyer. The M10, fitted with a 3-inch gun, had an open-topped turret. The crew was left poorly protected, but this was more than offset by the resulting high speed and all-round vision. By September 1944, the Sherman was completely outclassed by German tanks, but what it lacked in armor and firepower, the Sherman would make up for in sheer weight of numbers. The Willis MB General Purpose or GP utility vehicle was known to Allied troops as the Jeep. The Jeep had a 4x4 transmission, which enabled it to negotiate rough terrain and reach up to 65 miles per hour on the open road. The Jeep was most highly prized as a forward reconnaissance vehicle for the main armoured spearheads, but it was a versatile machine. It was used extensively as a field ambulance and as VIP transport. For amphibious operations in all theatres, the Jeep had been fitted with an extended vertical exhaust pipe, so it could drive from landing craft to beach without flooding the engine.